Hi, friends. Welcome back. Today we are here to wrap up season four. We're going to be doing a little discussion about it. So, I'm going to be answering some questions. I'm going to be talking about where it stands in my ranking in regards to favorite seasons. I'm going to be talking about the big bad, what I think about him. And of course, I'm going to be giving some season five predictions. By the way, if you do want to skip to the predictions only, I'll leave a timestamp over here so that you can go straight to whatever minute it says over here. Because usually I like to leave the predictions for last just because it gives me a chance to come up with more while I'm discussing the season. Sometimes that'll just spark a thought that leads me somewhere. So usually the predictions are at the end of the video. So yeah, other than that, before we head into the season, I want to give one quick warning that is, please do not watch this video if you have not finished Buffy and the Buffyverse, because I have seen the later seasons of Angel and I have some random Buffy knowledge that I know at least one thing that will be coming up in this discussion that is a Buffy plot point from another season, from a future season, but like a spoiler that I know happens. So don't watch it if you haven't seen all that, because I don't want to spoil this for anyone. The one thing I want to talk about first is where season 4 stands in my ranking of favorite to least favorite season. And I know that it is an unpopular season, which is why I want to take a step back and actually think about the thing that I'm going to say, because a part of me wants to say that it might have been my favorite, but I'm not sure if that is true or not. But we'll explain. I'm gonna explain. Well, first of all, I feel like these videos are good for me because I get to think about the season as a whole. Because at least for me as a reactor, I'm so used to watching each episode sort of individually just because it takes so long to get through the entire season that like it's so much easier to just think about the episodes by themselves. And of course we'll connect them eventually, but I feel like right now it's good because I was sitting down and I was thinking, like, what are my feelings about this season as a whole? How does it work? How does it not work? And those kind of things. So it's really great to be able to do this discussion because I feel like it's a good way for me to even process all of that. And I do think season 4 has its problems for sure. I think Adam could potentially be the biggest problem, and I think it's all about timing. And I'm going to get into that, but just overall, I feel like the reason that I feel compelled to say season 4 might have been my favorite has to do with pure feeling. I think season 4 brought out feelings inside of me, like extreme feelings that I had not felt in previous seasons of Buffy yet. And I don't know if this is just about the specific storylines that they chose to develop, but I do think that a part of it has to do with the timing of things. Because I think it's about like attachment to the characters. Because, of course, while I loved these characters since I met them in season 1, because they've always been so compelling and nice and relatable, and of course, I immediately bonded with that, I think that 4 seasons into the show, you get them in a whole different level. It's just, you really sort of understand and have an attachment to them that is like unlike anything you could have built with just 1 season of the show. And so I think that maybe that is what brings out these feelings inside of me. And I specifically think of Faith. That is the one thing that comes to my mind. Like, her episode made me lose my mind. I was out of the world excited, and I feel like that was a familiar feeling that I felt like in Hush, where I was so damn excited. I was having the time of my life. I was like, I want to treasure this moment for the rest of my life. I just feel like there are these episodes and moments that really stuck with me. And of course, like the Willow and Tara relationship, but I sort of figured that I would like them. But even that, I didn't expect to be as invested in that, in these storylines. And I also don't know if this could potentially have to do with me as a person, just in the sense of I started reacting with Buffy. I didn't know what I was doing at all. Not that I know now. Clearly, I still don't know. But what I mean is that, like, I don't think I was as comfortable sharing my emotions. Like I think I was trying to keep it more like low key, like lock up the Brazilian inside of me. But I feel like now I'm starting to become more comfortable inside the camera, and I feel like I'm not trying to like contain my excitement or anything like that. I feel like I'm just letting myself feel whatever I want to feel. Um, and I feel like maybe that freedom is what's making me sort of freak out a little in season 4. But I feel like there was so many moments in season 4 where I genuinely wanted to like pull my hair out. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I can't believe this is happening and this is exciting and I love where the story is going. And I feel like it wasn't even just with the good things. And I guess this goes a little bit into Angel, but I just think about I Will Remember You. The feelings that that episode made me feel were unlike anything the Buffyverse had made me go through before. So I don't think it's all just about the highs of like meeting Tara and the Faith episode, which was so cool. Like it's not even just about that. It also goes into the depths of like it made me cry more than I had, like more than passion, you know? And so I just think that that was an interesting like range of emotions. I think season 4 brought out a lot of emotions in me, and that's why I feel compelled to possibly say it was my favorite. But it does lack on the story. What it gave me an emotion and like I want to say creativity with Hush, it lacked in regards to like the storyline of the big bad for the season. And I do think that my biggest problem with it was the lost potential of Adam, because I think that when they presented us to him, I was so excited because he seemed like he could be the coolest villain. And I was even offended after I posted that episode and people were saying, like, I don't like Adam. Like, congrats, you met the big bad, but I don't like him. I was like, how dare you? Like, he seems so interesting. He seems like he has a mission. He seems like he knows all of the answers. Like, he seemed like the coolest dude ever. And I think that Adam genuinely had the potential to become the best big bad that Buffy has seen. But I just don't think they took it there. I think that they kept him a little bit like too at bay. I feel like the moment that we met him was the coolest moment that we had of him. Like that was his peak, and I feel like that can't, like, meeting somebody can't be the peak of their storyline. But for Adam, to me, it felt like it was, because there were so many things that it felt like they were leading up to, um that they simply didn't. Like, I was so fascinated by Adam's curiosity about humans and how they work and stuff like that. And we did get to see him like dissecting a body and stuff like that, but I feel like we didn't get to see the intricacies of his brain and what is getting him to think those things and stuff like that. So I feel like the Adam storyline was a little bit of a letdown. But I feel like the problem with it is also just the timing of things. I think that's what might have made this season not be everybody's favorites, because I think that overall people don't like season 4, which is honestly a feeling that I don't understand. I really enjoyed season 4. And I mean, maybe I'm going to feel differently after I've seen all of Buffy and I'm going to reflect back on it and I'm going to be like, oh, maybe it wasn't as great. Because I also think this is something with reacting to my style of reacting, is that I enjoy Buffy so much that whenever I'm watching an episode, 99% of the times I am enjoying the episode, I am into the episode, I am into the storyline. It is only after I pause and think about it that I will realize that, like, oh, maybe this episode wasn't as great. I'll start comparing it to other episodes, to the story, and I'll realize that it wasn't as great as I thought when I was originally watching. So maybe this is going to be the case for season 4. Maybe I'm going to watch the other seasons and I'm going to be like, wow, yeah, season 4 was really not it. But as of right now, like I said, it brought out the emotions in me. I thought it was interesting and like compelling, despite its problems. But about the problems, yeah, like the timing of season 4, I think could have made it more interesting if we had been presented to Adam a little bit before, because I think it was only around the middle of the season, like a little bit after the middle of the season, that we actually got to see him for the first time. Was it like 414 or something? Like, I think that's a little bit late because it doesn't give us enough time to actually sort of bond with or care about the big bad. And of course, like, I feel like the initiative was just as much as a big bad as Adam was. And they did set them up from the very beginning. I think they showed up in the like 401. So that was good. But I feel like they could have hinted towards Adam at least. And maybe they did hint towards him and I haven't noticed. It should also be noted that like I started the season in May and it is like the very beginning of May and it is now middle of December. So it has been, I think, like 7 months or something since I saw the beginning of the season. So it is pretty foggy in my memory just because I've seen so many episodes after that. Like it's just, it feels like it's been so long that I don't really remember details and stuff like that. But just, so if I'm ever like missing any details and stuff like that, that's probably just because it's been a while and my brain is already starting to um, forget the details as it usually does. So it makes it hard to analyze the season as a whole just because it takes me too damn long to get through them. So I do think that like they presented the initiative at the very very beginning, but they only presented Adam after the middle of the season. I think if they had set up in the very beginning, if they had, because the initiative episode where we actually found out about them was only episode 7. If they had made it a little bit sooner, like maybe episode 4 or so, where we found out about the initiative, well, maybe the Riley twist wouldn't hit as hard. So I can understand them dragging it a little because it did make me trust Riley to a point where when I found out about him and Walsh, I felt betrayed. So maybe that works. But maybe the idea of 314, which I think they presented in Ethan's episode, maybe they should have brought it in a little bit before. Because I feel like as soon as we found out about 314, I was like, I want to know what it is. I want to know what it is. And then they showed it to us like the next episode or something. And I was like, already? Like, I know that I said I want to know what it is, but I feel like the mystery can sometimes be like the hype and the mystery can make it even cooler. And so maybe if they had presented the idea of 314 all the way back when we found out the initiative was the initiative, then when we finally found out what 314 was, then we could have been like, you know, even more shocked or something like that. And I'm not sure how many setups there were because like I said, I feel like I'd have to rewatch the season and see if maybe they were setting up 314 and I just hadn't noticed it. But I do think that changing that timing, having Adam come in sooner so that we could explore more of him would have worked. Because I feel like we saw very little of him. I don't think there were many Adam-centric episodes other than like the finale and the episode where like he's presented. And I feel like we needed some episodes in between that were more focused on getting to know Adam, getting to know his purpose. I feel like his purpose to me seemed very vague. Like, we never knew exactly what he was going for, which can work if mystery is his thing. But I feel like the idea, for example, that they established with the mayor, of the mayor having a purpose, graduation date, ascension, you didn't know what was happening, but you knew that it was bad. And so I feel like knowing that Adam was leading up to something could have been interesting because right now it just seemed like he was a big bad, but we didn't know what he was actively going for. Like we didn't know if they had to defeat him by a certain time. Like maybe he was just going to keep searching things forever. I just feel like if they had added some sort of sense of urgency, if they had added more meetings of him with the rest of the squad, because I feel like the only people who interacted with Adam were Buffy and Riley. That's about it, I think. So like if he had run into the rest of the squad, if we had seen him really prove to be a threat, because I feel like he started off so strong, like by killing Walsh. His first moment being like the death of Walsh, I was like, oh, we're fucked because that guy is gonna kill everyone, you know? And that's why I think he started off so strong. And maybe because he was so strong when he started out, you know, kind of like having a really good episode and then the one after it can never be as good. Maybe they started him off in such a good way that whatever came next would never be able to live like up to that. And I do think that also maybe this is what was lacking in the finale, is that he seemed like such a bigger threat in the very beginning when we saw him kill Walsh, we saw him kill Forrest, we saw him kill the scientist guy. And I was like, okay, this means he has to kill somebody that we care about. Because he was only killing people that wouldn't really affect us that much, that seemed to be more in the initiative. Like, he just decided to exterminate the initiative. I mean, good for him. But it made me think that we were going to lose someone in the finale. I get really scared, y'all. Some trauma coming up right there. I always think we're going to have people die in the finales for some reason. And surprising, like, they have not actually gone there, which is a little bit of a relief because it's not like I want people to die. But at the same time, and it feels horrible to say this because I know that I will regret it the second that anybody dies, because obviously somebody's gonna have to die again at some point. Like, Jenny truly traumatized me. She scarred me. Anybody who knows this knows how traumatized I am by her death. And yet, it was good storytelling. Like, I hate to say it, I hate to admit it, but it did make season 2 stronger. It did make Angela stronger, and I was waiting for them to do something like this for Adam. Like, I was so convinced Riley was going to die. And to be honest, I still think he's gonna die. I have a feeling inside of me, but I also had this really strong feeling about Oz, and that's not where his story went. So maybe Riley's not gonna die. Maybe he's just gonna leave to go find a shaman to control the wolf side inside of him. But I don't know. I almost feel like whenever they don't go down this death route, I'm a little bit underwhelmed, which is horrible because I don't want to go through the pain of death. But I just feel like it makes things never seem as big as they could be, especially with what I thought they were setting up with Adam, if that makes sense. And I do think, in regards back to like the whole timing conversation, I do think that the finale could have worked better if the second episode had been, if episode 21 had been more included into episode 20. And in general, just the whole idea of Restless being in season 4 is still very confusing to me. I don't like, as of right now, I don't like the fact that Restless is how the season finishes, just because we don't understand what that is, and it feels like a season 5 episode. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to change my mind once I've seen season 5, but to me, it just made the timing of things very confusing when I thought we were not done with the Adam storyline. I kept waiting for him to come back. I kept waiting for a twist. Like, episode 20 and 21 did not create the buildup that I would have expected, and I think that that would have been easily fixed if episode 21 had already started. If it had started in episode 20, which it did a little with the setups of Spike drifting them apart, but I don't think it was enough. I think that we should have started to see Adam's plan in episode 20 so that they would be coming up with a plan during episode 20 so that we could fight him on episode 21. Because as of right now, episode 21, they came up with a plan, they executed it, and they succeeded like really quickly. And then that made me keep thinking that something else was going to happen, that was not it. Like, it seemed too easy. And I think a part of it was just because it seemed too quick. So in general, I feel like all the problems that I had with season 4 seemed like they could have been fixed so easily. You know, if they had made some storylines come in before they actually did, and so that they wouldn't have to rush things so much, and just actually giving Adam a storyline. Because as of right now, I think he is probably the weakest of the big bads that we have seen, because I think even the Master seemed a little bit creepier than him, because the Master just had something about him, and maybe it's just because it was season 1 and I was so like fascinated by it. But right now, Adam, I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you, and you decided to just be a basic bitch. That was upsetting, but it's fine. So those were my problems with season 4. But I feel like other than that, I actually, like I said, I really genuinely did enjoy it, because I feel like even though it could have been better, those things that I was discussing didn't necessarily take me away from the story. I was still invested. I still wanted to see what happens. I think the only moment that I genuinely was frustrated was the end of episodes like 20, 21, where I did not know what was happening and I was very confused. And then obviously the next episode did not help that at all. And I feel like not being able to take the story seriously in episode 21 definitely took away some of the enjoyment out of it. The fact that I didn't think any of it was real, which I know is on me. But in my defense, there was like a whole episode after, so I didn't think they were going to defeat Adam then. Um, but in general, let's talk about the season 4 vibe though. Because as many of you might remember, I was going through a little bit of a breakdown um nearing the end of season 3. I think it was around choices or so. I was like, nope, can't face it, can't face the end. They started talking about college, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to see graduation. I don't want to get rid of Sunnydale High. Like, it was a hard moment for me because even though I knew that this change had to happen, I feel like I was in denial about it. I just, it's like, I feel like I felt like I was the one graduating high school, and it was just like scary because I feel like university can just be so new. And so I think I was feeling that for them, just like how I feel like when you leave high school, you get scared about university because everything feels so shiny and new. I was afraid of that for Buffy because I thought Buffy was going to be so shiny and new because I thought everything was going to be different. And I just like the comfort of knowing what to expect. You know what I mean? Changes can be hard. And I didn't think I had a problem with changes until I saw myself having a breakdown about not wanting to finish the high school years. So that happened. So I went into season 4 concerned. I got very excited because I was like, this feels like we're going to be meeting the new side of Buffy. Because it very much feels like the way that people talk about like high school years and college years, it feels like it's two different shows almost. You know what I mean? Like, it was the end of an era, which was hurting while it was the end. But as soon as I started appreciating the fact that we were starting a new one, and that was such an exciting moment, I think I started hyping myself up about it. But I was concerned. I was afraid I wasn't going to get into it the same way that I did with Buffy. Because, of course, I liked Buffy from season 1, but I feel like season 2 and season 3 grew my appreciation of it. I got really into it, and I was scared that changing everything was going to take me all the way back to season 1 and having to get used to things, having to learn things. I thought it was going to be a lot of world building. Like, I was trying. I failed at this time. I was trying to watch a little bit of my season 3 recap because that's what I did for season 2 so that I would know what I wanted to talk about. But the season 3 one was just unbearable. I couldn't do it. So I quit on myself pretty early on. But I do remember saying, I heard myself saying that I thought season 4 was going to be similar to season 1 because I thought it was going to be establishing a lot of things as to the new normal of Buffy. And I think it was. But I think they did it very delicately and a lot more delicately than I could have imagined. Like, the first episode, The Freshman, was a huge shock, and everything felt like so shiny and new, and it was weird. But I feel like they leaned into it, and a few episodes in, like right now, I am 100% immersed into the college, like the university. Like, of course, I still remember the high school years, but I feel like we're in a completely different place right now. And I was afraid that that change was going to be awkward, was going to be like, I didn't know how much they were going to change, and I was worried, but I think they did it very well. I think the change was smooth as it could be. And even though it did lead to some sort of different relationships in between the characters, which I will be talking about when I actually talk about like relationships, even though that might seem like they were a little bit apart, I feel like a part of me understands that just because when you go to university, you sort of just meet new people, and as much as you want to stay in touch with your high school friends, and you do, sometimes you just have to drift apart a little. And so I understand that because I think it felt real, at least to me. I was like, I have been in this place where I feel like my first year of university, I was not keeping as in touch with my high school friends as I wanted to because I was meeting new people. And I feel like that's normal, and it's so frustrating. And right now I'm thinking about Buffy and Willow, of course, like, they're still close and they're still really good friends, but it is a different dynamic than what we had seen of them in the previous seasons. But we will talk more about that when I get to that part. I am honestly really trying to stick through a route that makes sense because lately everybody has been making fun of me on my Patreon because I haven't gotten to post the later end of season 4 on YouTube yet, but on my Patreon, everybody's making fun of me for like just my thought process, which has not been going down like a coherent like place. So I'm trying to make this make as much sense as I can so that you guys know what I'm talking about and that I'm not like all over the place. But we all know that's gonna happen because I have like 4 pages of notes and there's no way that I'm gonna be following like a list because I'm also just going at the top of my head. Um so this is not gonna end well, but I promise I'm trying. So we'll get to the relationship discussion later. But the college vibe was interesting, but I also think it's interesting that they sort of dropped it in the end of the season. I thought that the high school, Sunnydale High School, seemed to be so much more prevalent than UC Sunnydale. I think Sunnydale High School was a huge part of the story of the first 3 seasons. I guess because the library was a really important set, because the classrooms were an important set, because the classmates were important. And I don't get that from UC Sunnydale. I really thought that we were going to meet a lot of different characters this season because I thought that we were going to meet. I knew that there had to be a character like Riley and, of course, Tara, but I knew about Tara's existence specifically. But in regards to Riley, I feel like I imagined that there was going to be a university character that was going to be joining in the story. And even though Riley, to me, I've said this so many times, but I really still stick by it. He feels very season specific. I can't see him outside of season 4. I can't. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they tied him into the initiative in a way that, like, I knew that season 4 was going to have to end with the end of the initiative, that now that it's over, I can't seem to see Riley past that, or I don't know if it's partially that or partially the fact that I just have a gut feeling he's going to die. But like, there's just something about him. Like, I thought that they were going to be presenting us to a character that would last throughout the entire show. Like, characters that we would be meeting in university would be with us until the very end of season 7. And I think that Tara seems like more of that character than Riley does, which is weird because I would have expected it more, like more characters even, because I feel like in high school we had so many small characters, you know, like we had Jonathan and we had Larry and we had like Harmony, for example, and I thought we were going to be meeting some of these small characters that would eventually, Amy, you know, like I thought we were going to be meeting all of these small characters, but we don't seem to have done that. I guess because we aren't focusing on cases inside the school. Because now that I think about it, like we met Larry and we met Harmony, like we met Jonathan and all those people because they all seem to have been a part of these supernatural occurrences at Sunnydale High. And I guess we were trying to get the monsters a little bit out of the school and more into like real world territory this season, in a way, even though obviously they did attack the school. So it's just interesting because I would have figured that everything, maybe this was good because that made it feel less like overwhelmingly new, but I did assume that we were going to be meeting a bunch of different people, and maybe we're still going to meet them. I feel like maybe season 5 is still going to present us to new characters, but I do feel like it's good for us to be having new people joining the ensemble because I think it just makes it like richer and just interesting, because sometimes they'll present you to characters that you really seem to like. Tara, hello. I'm talking about you. So I think it had a very good change in tone. I think it grew up with these characters. It did feel more college than high school. So it was a natural change in the feeling of the story. Like it's frustrating because I feel like I can't describe what exactly changed about it, but it really did, like in a fundamental level. I feel like it is a completely different season than what we've seen, and I think maybe this is a part of why I like it so much. I can tell that they're going down a completely different route, and I can tell that I'm liking it. And it was a concern because everybody, you know, for example, always speaks so highly of season 5 that I really want to like it, but at the same time I was worried that like I would never get into the high school years, into the college years as much as I am into the high school years. But I think that this season has shown to me that yes, I totally can, and I think I will, because it feels different in a fundamental level, and I don't know exactly what it is about it. And this would actually be something interesting to discuss with you guys. Like, if you guys know, because I can't pinpoint what exactly changed it completely, but I just feel like it did. So if you guys know what feels so different about this season, let me know. Because like I'm trying to think about it right now, and I don't know the one thing that makes it feel different or not. You know. Um, but in general, I also feel the need to talk about the new settings. They were interesting, but I do miss having a setting like the library. I think Jos's apartment became the new library, and while it works in many ways, because Jos's apartment did become sort of like a comforting place that they can always turn to and come to, which I think is sweet, and I think it does show how much these characters have developed, because I feel like it shows that their relationship has gone past just librarian and student and like watcher and slayer. I feel like the fact that they're going to his apartment shows that they are sort of friends now. They sort of have a bond that goes a little bit deeper than that. So I do enjoy it, and I have been growing to love Jalsa's apartment. It has started to feel like a safe place. Um, but I do miss the university being like a prevalent part of the story. I feel like we do see the dorms a little, but we never go past the dorms, not so much. We did have a few classroom scenes in the beginning of the season and stuff like that, and seeing them walking in the hallways, but I feel like now it seems to be a lot more focused on just the dorms of like Willow and Buffy's room and like the hallway. You know? Which is interesting. And like I said, I do think that like Sunnydale High did seem to be a bigger part of the story than you see Sunnydale, because I feel like I was expecting us to see Buffy more in class and those kind of things. I thought we were going to be following a little bit more about her college journey. Like, I thought we were going to know what her major is and like the classes that she's taking. And I still don't know what she's studying. She's probably undecided, right? Because I don't think she's studying like vampirism or slayerness or anything like that. I mean, hopefully she can get like a cheese class for the next semester or something, because there's something going on with cheese and I want her to figure out what it is, because I can't do it on my own. Um, but I thought we were going to be a lot more focused on understanding that journey, and like I thought we were going to be able to see like, is she doing well in classes? Like, is she getting good grades? Is she struggling? I thought we were going to be focusing more on the college experience, just like we did with Parker. I think Parker, to me, I hate that douchebag so much, but I think he was the perfect representation of what I was expecting for the season regarding college, because he was a demonstration of what college can be like the bad aspects of college. But I think that it was just such a real scene. I feel like so many people, even if you haven't experienced that firsthand, have seen that happen to a point where it felt too real to even touch. You know what I mean? And so I feel like I was expecting moments like this of seeing Buffy go through that transition, especially because she was struggling so much in the beginning. I think Willow just fit right in, and she was, you know, enjoying it. And I think Buffy was trying very hard to do it, but she was not having the easiest time. And it's interesting because I feel like they made a pretty smooth transition, because I don't remember the moment where Buffy suddenly became okay with the idea of college, but she did. And I think that in part that has to do with Riley. I think that maybe him and getting to know his friends and stuff made her feel more inserted to the college community. Because I feel like Willow, she had her Wicca club, and I think that she was just. Willow seemed to be really social, you know, just the way that I was watching a part of 401 today, just because I was like, what was that episode again? No, I'm kidding. Like, I remember it, but like, I just wanted to remember some specifics because I felt like it was important. And the fact that Riley had mentioned when he met up with Buffy, he called her Willow's friend. I was like, oof, like that is harsh. And like, I just feel like that's because Willow was really trying to be social, really trying to get to meet new people. And it's not that Buffy wasn't, but I think she was a lot more stuck in high school. And I thought we were going to be really exploring that journey for her in a way that we didn't. But I'm fine with that, because it does seem like she got over it, and I do think she is into the college mindset now. So like, it worked. We just weren't a part of how that happened. Even though, like I said, I do think it was Riley. So the settings and the way that they're using the settings are different. And in general, the other thing that I guess is new are characters, and we did meet some interesting characters, and the ones that I feel more compelled to talk about are just Riley and Tara, because they're the ones who are actually sticking around, it seems, because like Walsh, for example, like she's dead, so I might talk about her a little, but not in regards to like the season as a whole. But Riley and Tara, I feel like they're characters that they're presenting us for like the future, even though Riley, I still know you're gonna die. I have never felt more strongly about something. Which means he's gonna beat all the odds and be the only person standing at the end of season 7, isn't he? I just can't imagine him in season 7. Maybe he could last season 5. I don't know. I'm trying to think about why I'm so sure that he dies, but I can't tell you. It's just a feeling. Um, but anyways, I like that we met these new characters, and I also like that we didn't meet them at the exact same time. I like that we met Riley in the beginning of the season because that gave us a while to get to know and trust just him, and him slowly trusting him, bringing him in, and those kind of things. And I like that we met Tara in the second half of the season because that gave us time to really develop her character after we had already developed Riley. It helped bring the emphasis to sort of just Tara so that it didn't get like confusing or overwhelming or anything. So I think that was a good characters that we met. I also want to talk a little bit about the Angel separation because I haven't talked about that. It was fascinating because I wasn't sure how they were going to go about separating these shows. They were a lot more interconnected than I thought. Just right now, them being in the phone with Willow in the season 1 finale of Angel, and the fact that we got to see that Giles communicates with them, like, I like that they really kept the connected aspect of it because I really thought that they were going to branch out into their own shows, and I wasn't sure how the crossovers were going to go, but I don't think I expected them to be this involved. Like, I did not expect Buffy to go to Angel or Angel to come into Buffy. That did not cross my mind. That was mind blowing, but I really like it because it gave me Bangel. But I think that overall, they just really went about it in a very specific way that I had not thought about. I was concerned about how I was going to feel about losing Cordelia because she had been such an important part of Buffy for me and I had really grown to love her. And of course, I was concerned about losing Angel too because like I was suffering so much about Bangel and the end of that and stuff. But I feel like for Angel, from the moment that he appeared, I had prepared myself of the fact that he was going to leave. And I think that while I tried doing that with Cordelia too, I don't think I was able to prepare myself that much, probably because I have a bigger attachment to Cordelia. But just in general, I feel like they actually fit in so well into their own show though. And I feel like I'm going to discuss more about this in the Angel season 1 recap. But in general, like I was worried Cordelia was going to feel out of place and that I would miss her in Buffy. But the reality is, I have a very hard time seeing her in season 4. I don't know how they would have written her character. And I do think that Angel gives her a chance to like shine on her own. So, like, as hard as it is not to have Cordy and Buffy, I feel like I understand it. It's better because it gives us more chance to explore her character. But I do have to say that I miss being able to talk about her in my Buffy videos. It just, I love Cordy and it was hard, but I thought it was going to be harder. I thought it was going to be more awkward, and I think they were able to do it very well. And I think the Angel really stands up as a show in its own, and I think that the crossovers were fucking brilliant. I like that they used characters like Faith and Spike in both of the shows. I like that they brought in Oz to Angel before he left the show completely. Yeah, I think the crossovers were very good. Some of my favorite episodes. And I'm overall, it just makes me very excited for what they could be doing in season 5/season 2. Because now that I understand a little bit more about how these shows connect, and I know that they aren't as separate as I thought, then who the hell knows how far they're gonna go into crossovers and stuff like that. And there were so many more crossovers than I expected. Because I think we had quite a few. And I thought we were gonna have one per season, like maybe two, but it felt like we had more. We might have had like two or three big ones, but like even the nods to each other's shows, I wasn't expecting so much. So I think they did a good job of separating it. Um, I do think that it was the part that I was thinking about earlier today, though, is like Buffy getting over Angel and the fact that she immediately turned to Parker. And I think I was fine with that. And I was excited for her because I was like, girl, the only way to move on is to like move on. So, like, go for it, have fun with Parker. But like, she already went into it with with the mindset of a relationship. Which is fine. Like, it's Buffy, and I know that like she wants a relationship, but I feel like at some points, I want her to be single for a bit, I think. Um, because I feel like while that was the only way that I could see her getting over Angel, because I could tell that she was hurting and she was really sad in the beginning of the season. And I do think that, for example, being with Riley really helped her with that. I think that she needs to learn how to like stand up on her own. This is part of the Buffy discussion. This was not meant to come up yet. I'm a bad girl. I am not following my order of thought process like I wanted to. I've gotten distracted. What's new? We're not going to go down a Buffy talk right now. We're going to do that a little bit later. But something else about the first episode of Buffy, 401, that I thought was so interesting was that I was thinking about like the breaking of the Class Protector Award. And while at the time it just made me frustrated and it made me want to just kill Sunday, I feel like it's so meaningful because it's almost like they're telling her that everything she has accomplished in high school is nothing. Because now she's in college and it's like completely different, and all of her high school accomplishments are nothing. She just has to prove herself all over again. Like, to me, it just felt like it was a breaking of young Buffy. You know what I mean? Of the teenage side of her and her entrance into adulthood. It felt kind of symbolic in that way. And I hadn't originally interpreted that when I saw it, but it was only thinking about it right now. And I was thinking of the season as a whole and how it really is about these characters maturing and the beginning of their journeys into adulthood, that I feel like the symbolic meaning of breaking that Class Protector Award says a lot to me about leaving high school behind and going into college. And in general, I thought I talked about Adam, but I don't think I talked about the initiative so much. And those people were interesting. I like this spiral that we went with them because we went from like they're bad to never mind they're good to they're bad to boom. And I think that's just an interesting thought process because we start off thinking that they're bad because we're just seeing them being sketchy and kidnapping Spike, and we don't know what's happening, but we know that those people can't be good. And then we start to figure out that they're good, but at the same time, I feel like there's a feeling, at least for me, but I feel like that has to be for everybody, that you know that there's got to be something sketchy about it. There's got to be something wrong because it can't all be sunshine and rainbows. And I like that because it feels like there were so many nuances in regards to the initiative of like, are they really the bad guys? Like, are they really the good guys? Like, there was just so much about them that was like, they're just trying to do their jobs and they're doing what they think is right. But what they think is right is not necessarily what we think is right. And I say about this as the initiative as a whole, not specifically Maggie, because I think Maggie had very specific purposes that didn't necessarily align with the initiative as a whole. But I think that the initiative as a whole, like, I appreciate their meaning in the story. The fact that they're trying to make like the town and the city like safer. The fact that they're like neutralizing Spike so that he can't hurt people. And it's weird because it doesn't give him a chance to come into the realizations that violence is bad on his own. It's almost like it's forcing an epiphany into these bad guys, which would have probably like, it would have been a bigger payoff if he had come to that conclusion on his own. But I feel like in general, it might feel like a little bit of a violation of like human rights to like, well, demon rights, I guess, or vampire rights, to be messing with like the chemistry of their brains or whatever. But matter of fact is, they kind of are helping a little because like they're not allowing the monsters to like kill people like they would. the problem with them is that they can't see the same way Buffy does in regards to like not necessarily all bad, not necessarily all like vampires and demons are evil. That thing, like they lack that nuance of acknowledging that. But I think that in general, their mission, it sounds sketchy. Like I can see why people wouldn't agree with it, and I can see having some resistance towards it. But I think that in general, I kind of understand and almost, I don't want to say agree, but I almost do agree with their mission. So I think that the initiative was an interesting story because it made me question myself what I think about this, and how far I think we should be allowed to let them go or not into this whole process of trying to better the community. So I like it, and the whole government thing was kind of interesting because you get to see that like in the same way that the students in Sunnydale knew about supernatural, it's interesting to see that the government also seems to know. There are some parts of the government that are fully aware of what's happening. And I think that that is interesting because it could definitely come up at different points, and just military tactics and all of that, and like the teams. It was interesting because they were a human threat to face the supernatural. And so they really have to step up their games if they want to have any chance of beating them. And I think that they really proved themselves in many moments, even though I was talking about how it seems like only the initiative people seem to die, so maybe they didn't prove themselves like as much. I do think that they did a very solid job at what they were doing. So I think that in general, the initiative was very interesting, and I like the mystery that they had surrounding them until we figured out what was happening. And I still think that the Riley and Walsh twist was brilliant and so well executed. And like a small thing, but also in the end of the season, it seems like we finally ended in a little bit of like an upbeat note, even though we did kind of have that a little in the last season. But it feels good to not see Buffy running away, even though I feel like this is the one moment that she should. Like, I really want to grab Buffy and tell her, run, bitch, run. Because I don't think I like what's coming in season 5. It feels a little bit scary. Like, especially after Restless, it seems like there's pretty real threats. This just feels like the one finale that I would look into Buffy's eyes and tell her to just run as fast as she can. But it seems like she's not running this time. So again, I feel like that's character progress. She's like dealing with everything without having to like isolate herself and stuff. And while there still could be a time jump, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll talk about that in the prediction part in regards to time jumps. I like that she doesn't feel the urge to run. Maybe because something super bad didn't happen, but I don't know though, because I have no idea what happened in Restless. I still have no thoughts about that episode whatsoever. Um oh, and another important storyline that I feel the need to discuss a little in this episode is Willow's coming out storyline, which was very exciting, which came in a lot sooner than I anticipated. I think in my mind, everything in Buffy happens in season 5 because it is seems to have a consensus that it is generally people's favorite season. And so for some reason, I think I thought she would be meeting Tara in season 5 and coming out then. And that's not what happened. That happened a little bit sooner. And I'm excited because I do think that for me, it was a really huge part of why I loved season 4, was that I was so invested in this relationship, probably more than I have been with any of the relationships they have done so far. I think that there's something so sweetly like innocent and sweet about them that in many ways resembles her relationship with Oz too, that I just love. And about the way that they dealt with her like coming out. I think I expected her to come out because of Tara. I don't think I thought it was going to be about a specific character. Like, I didn't think that Willow was going to come to that realization on her own. I thought that it was going to be about meeting Tara and realizing she has feelings. So, that part, I think I got right. All the rest, definitely not. I think that, like, not only did I see Tara as just a love interest, and I did not assume that she was going to know about Buffy at all, which, by the way, I think would have been something that I really missed from that storyline, was that I wanted to see the moment where Willow opened up and told Tara that Buffy is the Slayer. Because I feel like that is big. And we brought so much emphasis to it when she was telling Riley and when she was telling Walsh, like, and when she told Joyce. I feel like whenever she tells anybody, it's a really big deal, like a really big talk that we need to have. And for Tara, they sort of just, she just knew. She just, I guess Bola just told her. And I wish we could have seen that scene. But at some point, I think I can understand them not showing that because it feels like they're saying their relationship is so close that it sort of just came out and it was never a big deal of like, should I tell her, should I not? It was just about they trust each other and they're being honest. And so it was a natural part of the conversation. But I do wish we had seen something about that because it threw me off a little to find out that she knew about the whole Slayer thing. So in general, I thought Tara was going to be, in a similar way than Anya, stuck in a love interest place. Even maybe probably more than Anya, because Anya came in with a really interesting demon story. But I feel like right now she's stuck in a love interest place, which I will be further discussing. Do not worry. But in regards to Tara, I like that they seem to be giving her storylines beyond that. And so her connection with Willow in general was very different than I thought. I thought I was going to have a lot more secrecy in between them. I thought secrecy was going to be their whole thing, not just because they wouldn't be ready to tell people, but because of the idea of her not being able to tell Tara the truth about the supernatural. But that's not something that happened. And so I think that like that automatically drew me to them, is that I realized that they were in the same sort of page about everything. But I just realized that I'm going to be talking about Willow's coming out storyline, not about Tara and Willow. That is a conversation for later on when we're talking about relationships. See, I'm back on track about her coming out storyline. So I do think they dealt with it in a really like natural way. I like it. I like that it wasn't a huge deal. It was big because Willow understood the extent of what that meant, but I like that it doesn't seem to have crossed her mind. I mean, I do think that homophobia crossed her mind at some points, but I don't think that that was the focus of the story at all. I think I anticipated Willow would be having some more resistance and some more fears, and I think that while she did have a fear, I like that it was a very specific fear. It was not a fear of the world is not going to accept me. It was a fear, I think, not just about the squad, but I think more specifically about Buffy. I think it was a fear of, will Buffy accept me? I don't think she cared about the rest of the world. I think she very much seemed to have a feeling that as long as Buffy could understand that, then she could handle it, which is very sweet. And I think it brings a lot of emphasis to their relationship. And I do think that that is why Buffy seems to be the first person that she wants to share this information with. And I can understand her being scared of telling Buffy because it really is something so big and huge. And so I think they did it in a really sweet and delicate way. I like that she wasn't, staying up at night wondering what she should do. She was just like, she was so much more chill about it than I could have imagined, because I feel like I see Willow as such a type. Well, I relate her a lot to me, just like a little bit like of a, I need to plan everything and everything needs to go according to plan. And so I feel like she would have tried to map out exactly what she needs to do in things like this. And I also thought that maybe there was going to be some sort of resistance on Tara's part. I wasn't sure if Tara was going to be ready to tell people either. I thought maybe both of them are going to decide that it would be best to like live in secret. And I like that the secrecy thing wasn't as long. Like, I don't know. I think I imagined that they were really going to keep their relationship a lot more low key. And I mean, they are in a way, but I think that they're also not hiding it, which I think is fun. Like, they were holding hands and she was playing with Willow's hair in front of Giles. Like, I like that they're not hiding it. They're just treating it as if they would treat a heterosexual relationship, which I think is so important. And, obviously I bring a lot of emphasis to this just because I am a huge fan of coming out storylines and queer storylines just in general, because I feel like I have acknowledged how much it has changed my life personally to have seen stories like this on TV. And I just think about my own personal experience and what it has meant to me to see those stories being shown. And so I feel like when I see stories like this, the reason that I get so invested into them is because I admire how much they can go away from just being in a show and how much it can really change people's lives if it's done in a good way. And I very much think that this was. I think that it felt sweet, it felt natural, and I like that there wasn't as much angst surrounding it as I would have expected. It really worked out for Willow, and I think it was a good message of hope, of like, it's fine and it might seem scary, but you should just do it. I don't know. I thought it was very sweet. I think they dealt with it really well. And something else that I'm thinking about in regards to overall thoughts of the season was how Graduation Day Part 2 seems to really have set up the idea of Restless, because we got to see Buffy and Faith sort of talking in like the dreamland, which was the first time that we have seen anything like this. And I feel like that was exactly what was happening in the entirety of Restless, where their dreams seem to be connecting, giving them a message. Who knows? Like, I do not know what was happening. But like, it seems like it was a small setup for it, which I would have never noticed because like it was only sort of one thing that happened. But I do think that like it was connecting. It seems like they already knew what they were gonna do, and it seems like it was starting to connect to that. And I do think that Faith's first episode, the This Year's Girl, so I think that was like 415, I think that that was also a setup. Like, it was very noddly, like gently nudging us in the right direction of like, we're doing these like dream kind of scenarios, so get used to it because you're gonna have an entire episode that is just that. So I like that they were setting that up, and I like that like it to me proved that there's some sort of truth to the dreams, that it's not just a dream. Because I do think that Buffy and Faith seem to definitely talk for reals in Graduation Day. I think that there was definitely, it was not just all in Faith's mind, and I think that I also had a similar feeling in This Year's Girl, even though Buffy was like running after her, so I don't think that was Buffy. I think that there's still like, it's not just a dream, it goes deeper than that. And that's what I want to understand about these Buffy style dreams. Like, what exactly do they mean? Because I know it's not just a dream. So I like that they set that up. I only noticed that when I was thinking back on Graduation Day Part 2. I think it was a very good way of showing us what's to come. And I assume this is going to be a big part of season 5. It feels like these dreams and stuff are going to be a recurring theme of season 5. And the last thing in my notes in regards to like overall thoughts is that I wrote, and I think it's interesting to discuss because I'm actually not sure why I wrote this. I'm not sure if I agree with myself. This happens so much. I can really change my mind quite quickly, because I wrote that there were like a lot of lows and highs in the season, more than season 3. And I think I might agree with it to some extent. I think that maybe this season did fluctuate a little bit more into its lows and highs, but I think that that might have just been because the highs were so damn high. Hush is very, very high, and like the Faith episode's also very, very high, and I feel like it makes it very hard for whatever is following. And I always say that Doomed is like the exception because I really did like it. But like, for example, the episode after Doomed, which I'm pretty sure was A New Man, that one wasn't as great. It was interesting, but it was not like the same. And you know, like Superstar, I think was the episode that followed the Faith episodes or something. Like, it definitely had its moments where the season kept coming down. But I think that just has to do with it having such strong episodes that it would be hard to follow. So I do think that like there were some really great standalone episodes though that really genuinely definitely work. But I do think that there was a little bit of some changes in the highs and lows, and I do think that season 5 is going to be all about consistency. That was one of my theories. I think maybe the reason that people like season 5, it's because it doesn't go so much into like this episode good, this episode bad, this episode good, this episode bad. Which actually, I mean, that's not how season 4 went. It's more like, oh, this episode was phenomenal and this episode was fine, and then phenomenal. Like, I don't know, like it's not exactly that easy, but I just mean that I think season 5 probably keeps a standard of like all of the episodes are really good to a point where you don't have those like not knowing what to expect. But I feel like that also happens. I don't know how they would be able to do that though, just because I feel like it's so normal to have some episodes that are going to be more important, that are going to like shine more, just because eventually people are going to feel more attached to certain episodes and stuff like that. And I feel like that just happens. I feel like it's probably very hard to create a season that only has impeccable episodes. So I don't know if they're going to actually be able to do that in season 5, but I would be curious to know if they're going to try. We're gonna see about that. I'm so curious about season 5. I genuinely cannot wait to start it. Now I want to go a little bit more into specific character talks. I want to be able to see where the character arcs went throughout the season, because while I do think that some characters, High Faith, I'm looking at you, had some amazing progress, I feel like there were some characters that had a very like not exciting character arc, like very stable, like not too much happened to them emotionally in regards to like character progress. So let's go into that. I actually want to start talking about Xander though, because I did mention Faith's name in regards to character progress, but I think that Xander was another one that changed a lot in season 4. I think season 4 was Xander's best season. I will die on this hill. I think that even the way that he started off in 401, like ever since he came back from his trip, he was mature. It seems like graduating high school did wonders for Xander. I think that maybe the school environment is not it for him. I think he probably made the right choice not to go to college, because it seems like high school was holding him back. I think it was making him feel like he had to be like the other boys in high school. And I think that what season 4 showed to me is that Xander on his own can be a really mature individual and can be like a really nice guy. Not that I didn't think that he was, but I think that sometimes he fell so much into like teenage boy stereotypes that I would just, you want to be like, oh, Xander, you little fool, because he's just a teenager. And I think that this season he was very mature, he was very different, and I really, really liked that side of him though. I feel like they didn't make him like overly serious or anything, because like they were able to change him while still making it true to his character. They didn't change him to a point where he became unrecognizable. I think they changed him to a point similar to Cordelia, for example, where it's still the same character deep down. It's just they've matured and they have a different outlook on life than they did when we originally met them. And I think that that is very exciting, because it's so much more fun to see a character grow than to have a character stay in the exact same place throughout the entire show. My only problem with Xander this season was the same problem that I had with Giles, which is they need something. But at least Xander, I think, was doing a lot better job than Giles, because he was, for example, working for Giles. He was doing the ice cream thing. He seemed, the construction thing. Xander was going out of his way to search for jobs, to find something to do. He was not like just, laying in bed and being like, nah, I don't really want to do stuff. He was out there proving himself. Like, it was great. It was great. But I do think he needs something a little bit more stable. And Giles was just concerning. Concerning is the word that I would say for Giles. And I'm going to talk about my predictions later, but I just think that like the whole setup with his poor relationship with alcohol, the fact that he doesn't seem to have a lot going on in his life. Like, it seemed like he had Olivia for a second. It does seem like they have something, but at the same time, she's not there all the time. And so he feels alone. And, like, he does have a good relationship with Buffy and with the kids, but it also seems like that's the only relationship that he has other than, like, Olivia, who we barely see. So I just mean that, like, I think Giles needs to find a life of like adults. And we did get to see a little bit of that with like him singing and stuff, but I think we really have to embrace that. I think we have to give him friends, because otherwise I think he's just gonna keep being in that same place that he is right now. Because I don't think there was too much character progress for Giles. I think he sort of chose to stay in the same place that he was since the beginning of the season. I think while Xander was actively looking for jobs and looking to do something, I think Giles just accepted defeat. So I want to see Giles trying. I want to see Giles getting a job, getting something that will like motivate him, because otherwise I think he's just gonna like fall down a really bad depressive episode of like, what is the purpose of life kind of thing. So hopefully, I have faith that both of them are gonna sort of get these type of storylines in the next season, but we'll keep that for predictions. In regards to Buffy, it's upsetting, but I feel like she hasn't had that much character progress this season. I feel like Xander had a lot more. I feel like Willow had a lot more. I think Buffy did go through some character development in what I was saying about the story of her being afraid of university and then growing to like love it eventually and like be actually emerged into it. So I think Buffy had some character progress. It's not like her character was completely the same from start to finish, but I do think that especially as the lead, and especially considering the fact that I felt like her other two best friends, Xander and Willow, seem to have so much more of a character progress, I think I would have liked to see a little bit more from Buffy. The thing is, I'm not sure what they would do. I feel like moving to college is already like a big enough of a thing, and I think Buffy is already such like top tier character that like I don't think you can get better than what Buffy already is. I fear that if she had too much character progress, she would transcend this realm and just not be a human slayer anymore. She would just be God. So, in a way, I feel like if I compare it to the other characters, I don't think she had as much character progress, but also in another way, she's just so damn great that I feel like I cannot make any Buffy criticism ever because it just don't feel right. In regards to Willow, I think I already started talking a little bit about this. I think she was so open to new beginnings, because not just her willingness to make friends and to have a new life as soon as she joined college, but also being open to be with Tara, for example, and all of the magic stuff. I think that was also a really big one, because I think that while she could be afraid of really going into that powerful side of magic, and it could have been easier for her to stay at this place that she was in of like knowing magic but not really going into it, because of course it can get really complicated and stuff. I like that she seems to be really going down that route, because I feel like it's a progress that has started but hasn't yet finished. I think she's gonna keep like studying magic, keep getting better. I feel like it's only gonna get more powerful and cooler. And so I'm excited because it feels like they're setting up a lot for Willow, and I think that she is a very different person than who she was at the end of season 3. I think college did wonders for her. I think she's thriving. I think she seems to be happy. And that is all I could ever want for Willow. So Willow being happy means Nomi's happy. So I really enjoyed where they took Willow this season. In regards to like Spike, I don't know who this man is, but that is not the Spike that I know. He is a completely different individual, and it has been fascinating. Like, just fascinating. I love this new side of Spike. I do think that he peaked a little bit in the middle of the season. I think Pangs and like Something Blue were like the most hilarious things I have ever seen in my entire life. Just looking at Spike's faces in those episodes made me want to laugh. And well, of course, he was still funny at like the end of the season, but I do think that like those 2 episodes gave him a lot of time to shine as like the new Spike, and I really enjoy that, because I think that there are so many complexities to his character now, and the fact that he can't hurt them, but he can still find ways around that, which is what we saw him doing in the finale by manipulating them. So it's like, if he really, really wants to, he can be a bad guy. He can go back to his big bad status. So I think the matter right now is to see if he wants to do that or not. And I think that that's a decision that he's going to sort of have to think about and make on his own. Personally, I'm still not sure. I mean, I'll talk about it during my Spike predictions. I'm not sure what side he's leaning, but I think it's really interesting to acknowledge the fact that he could go either way. I could definitely see him embracing the big bad again and being like, I may not be able to physically hurt you, but I will fuck you up in whatever ways that I can. Um, but also in another way, I could see his experience with Adam showing him the right way, if that makes sense. Showing him that he can try and be bad, but that is going against his gut right now because he has changed. So I want to see how much he actually changed or not, because there were some moments this season that I feel like it felt like Spike's, not just like his energy was very different this season. And so there were some moments that I thought maybe he actually is a good guy and maybe he doesn't actually want to do any harm. And I was convinced that he was going down like a positive upward spiral until he teamed up with Adam. So now I'm not quite sure where he's going, but I do like that we get to keep messing around with that because it's fun that you never know what Spike is going to do. Is he going to help us? Is he going to fuck us up? We don't know, but it's definitely going to be one of the two extremes. There's no like basics when it comes to Spike. It's either or. But I think that like he is a completely different character than the villain that we met in the previous seasons, or even the villain that we saw in the beginning of the season when he was in 403/103. I think that was his crossover episode, the episode with Harmony and stuff. Like that was he was a dick. There's no way around it. He was like a super abusive boyfriend. He was not a nice guy. And I think that his entire life changed after what the initiative did. And even if it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to revert the chip and stuff because, you know, Adam do be dead, but I just mean that like I wonder even if he had reverted the chip, if he would be able to go back to that, or if he now has like a consciousness about what he's doing that he's never going to be able to fully revert. So I think Spike is one of the characters that I'm most curious to see what's going to happen with him on season 5, because I do think that he has to be a part of the season. Like it doesn't seem like they were writing him off or anything. So I'll be curious to see how he's going to change and what direction are we going, Mr. Spikey. I want to talk about Tara, and I'm so excited to talk about Tara. Okay, so I went into the show imagining I was going to like her, but I think she was so much more of a fascinating character than I would have imagined. Like I didn't expect, for example, Faith. I expected to love her. Like I don't know why I had heard people talk about Faith so much that I was like, I am ready to stan. With Tara, I think it was more about I'm really excited to meet her. And I assumed that I was going to like her, but I did not think that she was going to become one of my favorite characters. I think because I thought she was just going to be a love interest, I thought she was going to be a little bit of a basic bitch. No offense, but that is what I assumed. So the fact that she has so much complexity to her is very exciting. I like that she seems to match Willow's energy of sweetness and just nervousism. Like she seems to have the same sort of social anxieties that Willow does, even though I do think that like Willow has changed a lot in college, so maybe Tara matches Willow's energy from high school of being a little bit shy, of being a little bit like out of place. So I do think that this definitely brings them together and gives them like an insight into the way that they see each other, like they understand what the other one is going through. But I just think that Tara is such a genuinely sweet individual. I think that's what really appeals to me about her, is that she just seems to have such a pure heart and she seems so nice to everybody. Like I love how nice she is. And also she's fucking brilliant. Like the fact that she was the one who was able to figure out that Buffy was actually Faith was just so big brain alert of hers. Like it was just so brilliant. And I think that I could not have expected a better character than Tara. I think she came in very strong, and I thought that we were going to stay away from her a lot more. Like when we didn't see her in Doomed, I was like, I'm not even surprised. Like, we're gonna see her in season 5 and that's it. Like, this was her setup right now, and we're gonna take a few episodes away from her. But I like that they seem to really lean into her. Because while I assumed that she was going to be in and out of the episodes, like an episode here, an episode there, I like that she was consistently in every single episode after, I wanna say, A New Man. She was in the second half of the season, every single episode. And so I really enjoy that because it gave us a chance to actually know her instead of having to be like, I want to know more about you. It's like we're actually already getting to know her without having to beg for screen time. And I like her entire family history because I think it gives us a lot of questions slash predictions about what, like, who her family could be, what that means. But I like just the fact that she was willing to give Willow her family crystal after they just met and those kind of things. There's just something about her. I think if there's one person that I trust to read my energy, to tell me if I should trust somebody, it would be Tara. If I had my doubts about somebody and their intentions, I would ask Tara, what do you think about this person? Because I think that there's something about her that can just read people. I think she can really look at people and understand them and know them, and I really, really like that. And of course, she like also has a lot of potential in regards to all like the witch Wicca stuff. Like, clearly she's powerful, she's interested, she's driven, so there's a lot that we could do with that. And I think that we have already started seeing some character progress with her, because I think that she's not stuttering as much as she was in the beginning of the season, which I think shows that like she's becoming more confident in what she's doing. I think that while witch stuff, like, I think she always used to do some sort of like small level witch stuff, but the fact that she's getting ready to deal with like bigger things to me shows that like she's already changing and already willing to embrace that. And I think that that's very exciting because, again, it feels like a great setup for season 5, and I love her. I just love her. Tara, I love you. I love you. She's great. I love her. I love her. I love her. I love her. In regards to Faith, I do feel compelled to say that she is the one who had the biggest character progress throughout the entire season. A part of me wants to say Xander, but while he did have character progress, I feel like Faith went from evil to good. And I feel like that's a range that Xander never being evil, he could have never been able to achieve it. So I do think that Faith probably had the biggest character progress. Even though it sort of happened in Angel, I still feel like it is worth discussing in this video because I want to, because Faith is amazing, and I just feel like there were so many setups to what was happening in like Sanctuary and stuff, and the end of 5x5. Like, there was so many hints in this year's Girl, and then Who Is That? Who Are You? I forgot the name of the episode, sorry. Like, it was only when I was rewatching the episode after having seen 5x5 and Sanctuary that I realized how many setups there were for Faith's doubts and stuff like that. I just love her, and I think it's so exciting for us to be able to see a character go through such deep feelings, and like, it just feels like there was so much behind that, behind making that decision and stuff like that. Like, it was so heartwarming to see how she's changed and how she is finally starting to understand that the path that she was going on was not really the right one or the best one. So I really, really, I feel like I don't even know what to say about Faith's storyline because I feel like it was so big. It was so much bigger than this. It was about just doing the right thing. Like, I feel like it's so hard. At least I feel like I can sometimes have a hard time. Like, I feel like I can be a little bit stubborn, and it can be hard to admit that you've made a mistake. And for her to go to jail, I feel like is the biggest way to admit that she understands that it was a mistake. Because it's not even like, there's no way around it. Like, she's not trying to deny it anymore, the fact that maybe she was wrong. I think she's really come to terms with the fact that, like, I did that. And while it would be easier to continue down this spiral where she doesn't have to admit that she was wrong, where she can just pretend like everything is going well, this is what she wants, I think taking a step back and admitting the fact that maybe she wasn't going down the right route and maybe what everything that she was doing was wrong, I think is huge. I think it's absolutely huge. And I am really, really proud of her for doing that, for sticking to her convictions, even if it means paying the consequences. I think it's just going to be so exciting to get to further see Faith's storyline and how it's going to be like for her to face the consequences of what she's done, if she's going to be suffering a lot from that, or if she's going to be able to compartmentalize in the sense of being like, there's nothing I can do about it and there's no point in like being stuck in the past, so I'm just going to try and move on. Or if she's going to fall down a spiral of understanding that she harmed so many people and not really wanting to face that so much. I wonder if she's going to try and make amends, if she's going to reach out to Buffy, if they're going to have an important talk, because it seems like they're meant to. So many curiosities about Faith. In regards to Anya, I'm a little bit sad because I think I feel similarly to the way that I felt about Buffy, is that I don't think Anya had too much character progress. I think Anya from the beginning of the season is pretty similar to Anya from the end of the season, which is fine because Anya's amazing, so it just means that she remains amazing, and I can agree with that. But a part of me wishes that something else was developed for Anya, because she came into the show with such an important job and like premise of like, she is a demon, she's a revenge demon, and it's so cool, and we get to see how powerful she is, we get to see how she's like not at all a human, like we get to really focus on that, and it was so incredibly fun and interesting. And then suddenly she has been almost downgraded to a love interest, which is a little bit disappointing because I feel like she has so much potential. Because if she had come into the story as a love interest and remained as a love interest, then I'd be like, fine, because that is her entire purpose. But knowing that she's a demon, and they were mentioning a lot, there were a few episodes this season where they were talking about like, because Anya is an ex-demon, and I was like, then let's talk about it. Let's make a story about that. And I'll talk about my predictions for her later. But I do think that it would be interesting to explore more of that side of her, because I think they have left the demon behind and focused on Anya as purely being Xander's partner, which works because they're an adorable couple, but doesn't work because it takes so much emphasis away from her character and puts it just into the couple. So, Anya, I love you, so let's get you some storylines, girl. That is my wish, and you have to become a demon so that you can fulfill it. Thanks. Next character I want to talk about is Joyce, because I feel like Joyce, very different character than season 3 Joyce. Well, not necessarily different character, but I guess for Joyce it's more about the circumstances. I think she did change a lot in my head. I was gonna say when she found out about Buffy being a Slayer, but the truth is that my vision of Joyce has changed. Like rewatching the show and stuff like that, I feel completely differently about her than I do from my first watch. So my opinions about Joyce changes a lot. I'm not sure if she does as an individual or if it's just me, but I do think that we brought in a very interesting storyline for her in regards to sort of missing Buffy. We get to see that Buffy, no offense, Buffandra, because you know I love you, I don't like having to say bad things about Buffy. This is not fun for me. I almost want to not do it, but I want to analyze this. But I just mean that like, Buffy was not the best daughter for completely detaching herself from her mother in college. I understand it. I understand it so much because she is in college. It's a new reality and she doesn't want to be like stuck at home or stuck into that. But I feel like just seeing all the letters and stuff like that, like it almost seems like she didn't give her mom enough attention. And I feel like, especially being an only child whose mom is divorced, she's clearly an empty nester, but like a really big empty nester. Like Joyce kind of doesn't really have a lot right now. The one friend that she had put on the mask, became zombie, you know, like that whole thing. And so I feel like Joyce is so alone, and I think Buffy knows it. And I feel like I would have liked to see Buffy come home every so often. Like, I was upset that she didn't go home for Thanksgiving. I would have understood it um if Buffy's college was like, really far away, like in the other side of the country, but it seems like they're just a few minutes away. And that's the part that makes me upset for Joyce. It's the fact that Buffy's not putting in the extra efforts to come visit her mom once in a while to see how she's doing. Because I feel like even if she doesn't want to come and it's not for her, I feel like she should be doing it a little bit for Joyce. So I think it was a little bit upsetting because I feel like they did drift apart a little this season. And while I would expect that, and I do think it's normal, and I totally respect Buffy not wanting to come home all the time, um, I think we should have at least been able to see her come back once, and that not being to kill Faith. I think I'm not sure how they could have done it. Maybe like end one episode with us seeing Buffy going home to know that she came to spend the weekend with her mom or something. I just feel like if we had seen at least one scene of her coming to visit Joyce, I don't think I would have gotten the same unsettling feeling that I have right now of Joyce being completely ignored. Because I really am feeling for Joyce. I'm feeling her pain. I feel how much she misses Buffy. And I just want to be able to like give Joyce a little hug. Like, Buffandra, go home, girl. Don't do this to your mother. Like, that is mean. That's mean. So those are my feelings about Joyce. I want to talk about Oz next because Oz obviously was not as part of the season as I thought. When he didn't die in season 3, I was convinced he was going to be in it for the long run, at least for the long run of season 4. Seems like he was not, which is sad. But like I did mention, I do think Tara softened the blow because while I was upset about him leaving, I feel like I knew what was coming next, and I knew that Willow wasn't going to be upset forever. So while it was so hard to see her dealing with that, I think I was comforted by the idea that I knew that Willow was going to eventually find happiness again. I feel like I would have been a lot more concerned if I thought that Oz was it for her and that he'd had to come back, you know what I mean? But like, I had some faith in my heart that she was going to be okay. But in general, Oz's storyline was interesting because he seemed to have a lot of character progress. I only wish we had seen it. Because he did seem to change because he seemed to get a lot of control over his powers, even though it might have glitched there for a second because apparently Willow brings on the wolf inside of him or something. Like, he's definitely changed a lot because it seems like he has matured, in a similar, I feel like that is the word of the season for me, would be maturing. I feel like he also grew a lot, and grew into his powers of being able to like control them and stuff, because he did seem a little bit, not sure immature would be the right word, but the whole thing with Veruca did make him seem like very much of a teenager. Even though I do think that was partially clouded by like the wolf inside of him or something. I just feel like he made his changes, and I like that. I only wish we could have seen him go through these changes, but at least we got to see the final outcome. I think it would have been frustrating if he left and we never got any answers about how he's doing and stuff like that, but he came back, which is exciting. And I think it showed us that he was actually able to go out and accomplish what he did, because I think if he had left and we never knew if it was worth it, then that would have been upsetting. But we know that the reason he left was good because he's actually accomplishing the things that he said he was going to accomplish. So those are my feelings about Oz. I think Harmony is another really huge untapped potential, because I think that exploring her relationship with Spike was already fascinating. But I'm upset that we were able to keep Spike and then they forgot, like they ditched Harmony. Because it was so interesting to see her as a vampire. Like, that was exciting. And I wish we could have seen a little bit more about that. I feel like I was mentioning this in, I think it was 120 of Angel, how I wish that we could go through the process of seeing somebody getting turned into a vampire. And I think Harmony would have been the perfect character for that. And I mean like the process of like the before and after, how she changes. And we did get to see a little bit of it, but I wish we could have actually followed it. Like how was her first feed, and how is she living her life? What do her parents think? What has she done to her friends? Just like following like really start to finish what this process is like of getting turned into a vampire, because I think that would be such a phenomenal and really interesting story. um and I'm upset that they shied away from it in regards to Harmony, because we never got to see her transition. We just saw her human and then bit, and then suddenly she's a vampire. But it doesn't, it seems like her personality still seems to be intact, and really almost the same. So but it does seem like she has a little bit of a soul. Like I wonder how she's doing about feeding. Is she killing people? Is she like a serial killer now? Does she feel remorse? Does she not? I feel like this would have been the perfect character exploration, because I think that we would not only get to know Harmony, but we would get to know vampires. I think it would give us a better understanding of who vampires are and how they work and those kind of things by seeing how Harmony is dealing with it. In regards to Riley, um he was interesting. He was interesting because he started off as a basic bitch. No offense to Riley, but he seemed like he was just a teacher's assistant, and that was it. Nothing much to him. And then he became a really interesting character. And I think what fascinated me about it is that he seemed to really struggle with the idea of having to go against the norms. So I do think that he had a great character progress, because he was able to stand up for what he thought was right in regards to like Adam. I think it was the biggest proof of his strength when he's able to not fall into what Adam is forcing him to do, and he was able to cut the thing out and have his own like sort of feelings and actions, and be able to actually be in full control of himself. Because I do think that he went from being basic to being like, let's say like basic plus, if that makes sense. Because he got a lot cooler when he found out that he was a part of the initiative, but he was still a little bit basic in the sense of he was just another one of the guys. Of course he was a little bit in charge, but I mean that like he didn't really get a say of what they were supposed to do or like anything super major. He was more about like following the orders, so he was still a little bit basic in that sense. And I really think it was a great payoff though, like that they didn't keep him like that. I think that the ending was an amazing thing for Riley, because it showed how strong he can actually be. And I think it's really interesting that there seems to be a consensus that people don't like Riley. um I think maybe that's why my mind at the end of 420 immediately went to, oh fuck, he's betraying us and Riley has been bad all along. I think that would have explained to me like why people are opposed to his character and don't like him. I was like, oh, if he's evil, then everything makes sense. Um but at the same time, I kind of get it. Like there are parts of him that I really enjoy. Like I loved the fact that he was able to cut that thing out on his own and help Buffy. Like that was so badass, and he can really fight. And we have seen how much he has changed. So I feel like he has all the potential. I just don't know why he doesn't reach it. Because if I thought, like, a part of me would have probably assumed that this was just on me, that maybe I just didn't relate to his character that much, because sometimes you're going to click with a character and sometimes you're not. So I could have assumed that this was something sort of normal. But the fact that that seems to happen to a lot of people makes me curious about what could be missing in Riley. And I honestly don't know. But I definitely feel like the twists with him were great. I like that, like, I seem to always doubt him a little. Like, I never knew where it was all going. But I think that in the end, the man has proven himself. And I'm severely concerned for season 5 storyline for Riley. He's so gonna die. He's so gonna die. I've said that a billion times this video, but he's gonna die. Let's talk a little bit about Forrest, because I feel like that's where my mind goes to after Riley. I feel like Forrest, again, untapped potential. Because especially after seeing After Shows React for Riley video, I was like, oh my god, everything makes so much sense now. Because Forrest always seemed like a little bit of a little bitch. No offense to Forrest. I feel like I'm very harsh when I say things. I mean them with all my love. I just curse a lot. But he seemed to be even more stuck into the rules than Riley was, and already like Riley was already a lot. So it seemed like he didn't really have a chance to come up with his own opinions, and it seemed like he was just jealous of Riley for having a life that would go beyond the initiative. But I think it would really make so much, like, all of his reactions, everything would make so much sense if he was in love with Riley. I would definitely agree. So I think if we had seen Forrest in some sort of capacity other than the initiative interacting with any other person that is not Riley, we could have maybe grown to appreciate him more, because I feel like we would have understood more of who he is as a character. But I think his entire existence was based on the initiative, which makes him a very like two-dimensional character, because there's not that much to explore. He's just another one of the military guys. And so now about Walsh. Walsh is interesting. I also like her twist in a similar way that I like Riley's, of course. She was a lot crazier than I thought, though. It almost seemed so sudden that, like, at one point she was like, fine. She was like, just part of the initiative, and we're like, okay. And then suddenly in the next episode, she's like spying on Buffy and Riley having sex and trying to kill Buffy and being killed by her own creation because she is a cuckoo nuts doctor scientist person who decided that she wanted to make Frankenstein. Honestly, if you told me that when I met her, I would have been like, bitch, you crazy. And I feel like, again, maybe this goes back to the thing that I was discussing about the timing of the season. Maybe if they had spaced things out, if they had started showing hints that maybe Walsh was a little bit cuckoo nuts, it would have all made sense. Like, the second that you saw her spying on them having sex, you'd be like, oh, I knew that, like, there had to be something sketchy about her. And in some ways, I feel like you knew, and then in some ways you're like, no, but she's just a nice professor, scientist person, very well renowned, and she's still gonna have an affair with Giles, which she totally didn't, and that was a very big shock. So I don't know. Walsh is a little bit, I want to say, and I'm sorry if that's rude, she's a little bit stupid. You're gonna create a whole new, like, Adam person, and that is a combination of, like, a tribrid, and you don't think he's gonna kill you the first chance he gets? Come on. That is, like, amateur mistake. That was something. But anyways, Walsh could have been, no, I mean, I was gonna say she could have been an interesting character, but I think she still was anyways. I really like her relationship with Riley. We're gonna talk about that when we get into, like, relationship talk. And Adam, I feel like I've already discussed Adam and my problems with him as a character, and the fact that I feel like he never reached the potential that I wanted him to reach. Because the whole idea of a tribrid who had the best parts of all the other monsters is such an original and really interesting idea. I just wish it would have paid off like I wish it had. So I have decided something very important. I want to do an award for most untapped potential in season 4 in regards to characters. So the number one, no, should we start with number 3? We should start with number 3. Number 3 in the list is Oz. Because I think if we had been able to explore this whole idea of him and his werewolf side, it would have been so interesting. I kept waiting for us to really go down a deep spiral of werewolf stuff, and we didn't get a chance to because they did that outside of the show. So that would have been number 3 on my list. Number 2, we got Forrest. Because if we had like explored his relationship with Riley, for example, like his feelings for Riley, if we knew that they were like legit, even if Riley didn't feel the same way, but if we explored that and his potential feelings and seeing him talk about that to somebody else, if we saw him exist outside of the initiative, and if we gave some context, I'm thinking similarly to like the context that they gave for Lindsay in the end of season 1 of Angel, if we had some context about Forrest's backstory and what got him into the initiative, maybe we would have liked him more and understood more of what he was doing there and why he was there and why he didn't want to leave, like why he was so up in his ideals. And number 1 award for most untapped potential of the season would be Harmony, because I can't stop thinking about how cool it would have been to explore the storyline of her turning into a vampire. And I was really excited when they brought her into the beginning of the season, and the fact that they never actually went through with it um, made me sad, because I thought she was going to be a part of the season and she kind of wasn't. So I think those would have to be the three characters that if I had to pick, I would say they have the most untapped potential. But I did give a special mention to Xander. He would have been fourth because I feel like there's a lot that they could have explored with Xander that they haven't yet. But with Xander, I feel like they still have a chance to in season 5. So we'll see about that. Now I want to move into like characters' relationships with each other, because we've talked about them individually, and I guess I did end up talking a little bit about their relationships, but I want to go into like relationship talk for a second. And I don't mean just romantic, but also like friendship. Because I think this was a very important but hard theme slash part of this season. So obviously, like the core four seem to be drifting apart this season. And I guess like I had noticed it, but I hadn't noticed how important it was to the story until 420, when they're fighting, and you sort of understand that even they know that they fell apart. Because I thought it was just a feeling that I was having, that they were a little bit distant, but like I said, it's university, it's a new life, and I would have expected that to happen anyways, but I don't think I noticed how important that was until we saw them acknowledge that, until I saw Willow saying that she had always seen like a future with Buffy and now she was like a little bit unsure. That's the part where I was like, oh no, this is not okay. This is not okay. So it's interesting because even though it seems like they are not as strong as they were in the previous episodes, in the previous seasons, it almost feels like they split a little bit into 2 and 2, because I do think that Xander and Giles got a lot closer while Buffy and Willow seemed to get closer. I mean, Buffy and Willow didn't necessarily get closer, but they got closer in comparison to Xander, for example. Like, they didn't get closer to Xander, but living together, I'm sure that they got even if we didn't see it, I know that they got closer, because the experience of living together will automatically sort of make you bond a little bit more. So it's interesting because it's like they're having a distance, but like, I don't know. I think the reason I was never concerned about it is because I know they live together, and so I feel like no matter what's happening, I know that they'll be there at the end of the day. Even though they were like sleeping out a lot, I feel like they always came back to each other. And I was like fine with that, because look, I'm just fine with that. But it is frustrating when you sit down and think about it. They didn't have as many like bonding moments this season, I guess, as they could have in other seasons. But you know, I'm not too worried about it, because I feel like this show is all about the characters and all about their relationships with each other, and I don't think that they're going to wreck these relationships at all. And so I feel like maybe this distance was important to establish the fact that they're in college and they're gonna get closer again. Like, I don't have doubts about that. I don't think I do. I hope we don't lose that special relationship that they have with each other, because that would have really that could wreck the show. But since people still keep liking the show, I'm gonna guess they're not gonna go there. But at least I'm glad that Xander and Giles got something going, because I think that Giles didn't seem to be the biggest fan of Xander, but now I think that they actually can get along pretty well. And I think that, especially considering the fact that I want both of them to like find jobs and purposes in the next season, hopefully that means they can bond and hopefully find something like together. I don't know. I think they're developing a really sweet bond that we hadn't had a chance to develop yet, but now both of them feeling like they're in the outside gives them a chance to bond in a way that they couldn't. So that's good. Second relationship I want to talk about, because I feel like I want to get it out of the way, is that I want to talk about the whole like Bangel versus Buffy and Riley. Do they have a ship name? Have I asked this? Riley, Ruffy, Bruffy. Bruffy sounds right. I'm not sure if they have a ship name. Nobody ever mentions their ship name. That's interesting. Please let me know if they have a ship name. But anyways, I want to talk about Buffy and Riley versus Bangel versus Spuffy, because there was some setup over there. And that is the when I was talking about in the beginning of the video about the fact that I was going to talk about something that I know happens, it's about Spike and Buffy. It's because that. So we're going to get there. It's interesting because I feel like in regards to Buffy and Riley, I really go ups and downs in regards to them. I was not like there are moments, there are episodes that I'm shipping them fine, and then there are episodes specifically Doomed where I'm like, oh my god, I see it, I see the vision, I get it, I love them, like yes. But the things that I think that only happened in Doomed. Even though there were moments, I feel like whenever SMG looked at him with hard eyes, I felt it. I think Doomed was peak Buffy and Riley for me. But now that I think about it, and I would have to rewatch it to make sure. But I think it might be because it reminded me of Bangel, now that I think about it. The whole like, you can't be afraid, we just have to try. I don't know. In a way, I think I could see the words that Riley was saying almost like Bangel, like in a way that banter, like that sort of discussion made it feel like it could have been Buffy and Angel. And I think maybe that's why I was so caught up with them in that episode. I think I was feeling a lot of Bangel feelings and I was channeling them into Buffy and Riley. So I'm not opposed to them. I think they're fine. I think Buffy, I think Riley is like a nice man for Buffy. I don't have any criticism about him because he seems to be a genuinely nice dude. But matter of fact is, I don't feel the same, like my heart doesn't beat the same way as when I see Buffy and Angel interact. There's something about them that feels more, and maybe it's because it never feels like it concluded. I think I Will Remember You fucked me up in that way because it showed me that Buffy and Angel did not want to break up. This is not what was in their plans, and I feel like if we had seen that the chemistry was not there anymore, that they didn't like each other, then I think I would have probably gotten over Bangel because I would have been like, it's okay, we're through it. But I think what keeps me there is the fact that I know that if the circumstances were different, they would be together because they want to be together. So I think that's what hurts about them. And I think that's what makes them a little bit better than Buffy and Riley, in my opinion. And by a little, I mean like a considerable amount. Like I ship them a lot, and it's just so hard to see them interact every single time. But other than that, this season was undoubtedly setting up Spike and Buffy. Like I was shocked because I would have assumed that they were gonna start this setup after Buffy breaks up with Riley, but it seems like they're starting it now. So hi, okay, welcome to Spuffy, I guess. I never knew what I was going to feel about them because it's also interesting whenever I think back on Bangel. I remember the fact that I didn't want to ship them. I think I went into the show with wrong preconceived notions about Angel and thinking that that relationship was not equal and that Angel was obsessed with Buffy, which she kind of is. But I guess Buffy's a little bit obsessed with him back. And so I went into it not wanting to ship Angel. And in regards to Spuffy, I'm like, I don't know how to feel about them. I think people tend to like them, which is fun. And I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about them because, I don't know, I'm still stuck a little bit in Bangel and I'm trying to be supportive of Riley. But I have to say that every time we have seen Buffy and Spike interact in a more romantic way, I have been both horribly uncomfortable but incredibly curious. Something Blue was like really, really, really weird. But there's a chemistry there and you can't deny it. And that's what's weird. Like, it felt so wrong, but deep down it almost feels right. But it feels so wrong. Like, it's just wrong. And I like that. I would have assumed that that would be the only setup in season 4. I thought that was going to be like a one-time thing of like, hey, we're just setting this up and see how y'all feel about that. But they did that more. they did that with Buffy as Faith, and they did a few more scenes and a few more looks and a few more quotes where the banter was so direct and just I was understanding the appeal. I think that while it's not time for Spuffy yet, I think my heart and soul are potentially ready for it. I'm a little bit worried that I might still prefer Bangel because I'm still stuck there. But I have to say that I'm definitely more curious about that than I am about seeing her relationship with Riley. Um and maybe that's just because I know that her relationship with Riley is going to eventually die out. Like I know that there's I don't know, I feel like they're always going on like ups and downs in their relationship of like the spark seems to die out sometimes and then it's back and they're having sex for the entirety of an episode. Like they have their ups and downs to a point where I could see there being a down where they're just like, we're just calling it quits. So I don't know. I actually am very curious to see about Spuffy. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know how soon that's gonna come, but I wanna know. Other couples that I want to talk about, I want to talk about sort of Willow and Tara versus Willow and Oz. Not whenever I say versus, it sounds like I'm pitting them against each other, but I just mean like talking and contrasting these two. Um, in a way, I feel like Oz is the male version of Tara. Because I feel like they are the more pure-hearted characters in the show. Like they can do no evil. They care about people so much. You know, I feel like they have a similar energy and vibe that they exude. So it's interesting because it seems like Willow definitely has a type, and her type are big-hearted people who care about others and who are just so genuinely sweet. I think that both of their loves are so pure. And I think that in a way, her ending with Oz almost gave me a similar feeling of Bangel of like they're never gonna get over each other, but it was different though. Because while Bangel was like, I'm never gonna get over each other, but we have to, for Oz and Willow, it sounded like they had a little bit more of a choice. It was a hard choice, but they made it. Well, I guess mostly Willow by sort of picking Tara, but they understood that even though they care about each other, that's just not where they're meant to go right now. So it's interesting because I love both of these relationships, which is very interesting. In a bigger way than I feel about Buffy and Riley, for example, like I like them, but I don't love them. But in regards to like Willow and Oz, for example, I love them. I just love Willow and Tara more. But I do love Willow and Oz. Like there's no denying that. They have so much chemistry. They have something about them that just really, really works and really appeals to me. But I have to say that her connection with Tara, her instant connection with her without having to say anything, and the way that they just immediately bonded and never had to talk about that relationship, which I think is so meaningful to the way that the relationship started. Because they met without words. They didn't need the words to communicate with each other. And it's interesting that it seems like the hush concept is a standard in their relationship where they don't need to talk about the fact that they had something that was more than friendship feelings. They never talked about having romantic feelings for each other. They just sort of did. So that's just really adorable. And I really, really genuinely love their relationship for that. I feel like I can admit that there are good things about both relationships. So it's really interesting to have them both being so close to each other though. I think this show really rushes you in their relationships. Like they don't let the characters stay single for too long. Like they okay, we're heading from one relationship to the next and to the next and to the next. I mean, I hope there is no next for Willow. I hope her and Tara stay together until the end of the show. But I just mean that like I feel like they're always just jumping. I'm thinking about Buffy. Always jumping from one place to the next. In regards to Xander and Anya, they're fun. They're still fun. And their relationship has changed since the beginning. I think they have started developing something different, and it's become more serious, and you can tell that they're understanding each other more, and you can tell that they spend a lot of time alone that we don't get to see. But I hope we get to see more of that. I do, like I said, I hope we get to see more of them as individuals, but I do feel like they can give us something fresh with that relationship so that it doesn't get too stuck in what we've already seen. Because I don't know. I think I have said this before. I feel like sometimes the beginning of the relationship, the like will they, won't they parts can be the most intriguing. And then once they actually start dating, it just falls into like more of a common route of like they're past the honeymoon phase, right? And I think that Xander and Anya might be a little bit past the honeymoon phase. They're still a great couple, but I want to find a way to bring back the honeymoon phase a little bit just to see a little bit more of them and their chemistry, because I think they really work together and I think they bring out the best inside of each other, which are like the best type of couples, the ones that can really push you to become better as individuals, because you love the other person so much. I also put in my notes that I wanted to talk about Giles and Olivia, because I think that that is a relationship that they have started setting up this season, but they have completely neglected. And to me, it's a little bit weird the way that they treat her, because they showed her in the same episode of Tara, and I knew that Tara was going to sort of eventually come into the show, and I assumed that they were going to bring her into the show too, because it seemed like they were establishing a relationship in between her and Giles, but that we had never seen it, so I assumed that that was going to be like her entryway into the show. But they brought in Tara, thank you, but they didn't bring in her, which I don't understand, because I'm not going to be able to ship anybody with Giles if I don't know exactly how he feels about her. Like, they've never established that relationship beyond the fact that they are dating, but they don't live together. We have seen her. I mean, I'm not sure how much time is supposed to have passed within the entire season, but let's say it was like a year. We've seen her, I think, twice, which means did Giles only see her twice in the entire year? Because if so, that doesn't seem to work so much, because it's not like we see him, for example, in the phone with her of like, oh, 1 second, let me just say bye to her or something. Like, they're not talking about that. They just expect you to fall into that relationship without knowing what it's about. Like, to me, it's a little bit weird. I'm having a little bit of a hard time digesting that. And at first I assumed it was just because of Jenny, but given it further thought, I think it's more than that, because I think I would be ready to ship Giles with another person. I think I am, because it has been so long and because I want him to move on in a similar way that I wanted Buffy to move on after Angel. I knew it was going to be hard, but I wanted it to happen because I needed to rip that band-aid off. But the problem with his relationship with Olivia right now is that they're not exploring that. They're not saying if their relationship is serious. Like, are they talking about marriage? Do they want to have kids? Or like, do they just want to have a little fling because they're having fun and they enjoy each other's companies? How often do they see each other? Are they doing like, is the long distance working? Are they having trouble? Are they planning on ending the long distance? Or do they think they can make it work for years? Like, they don't talk about it. And I think that is a little bit frustrating to me, because if somebody's in a relationship in the show, I want to know. I want to be a part of it. I want to like understand how he feels about her and how she feels about him, and see if they're on the same page, and just explore that, because I don't think I'm going to be able to fully ship until I actually get to see them together. And I might be opposed to them at first, but I'm not gonna, I think I said this in my Q&A video, I'm not gonna be able to actually stop being like opposed to that relationship unless I actually get to see it and understand what it's about, because right now it's just in my mind. So I feel like we have to, well, that's gonna be in my Giles predictions, so maybe I should save that for the Giles predictions. But that relationship is weird to me because I don't know anything about it. I have no idea what point they're at in their relationship. Is it the beginning? Is it the end? Is it the middle? Is it the honeymoon? Like, I don't know. And another relationship that I also want to talk about for some reason is Spike and Harmony, because I feel like that was such an interesting relationship. That's it. I just wanted to bring it up and say, what the fuck? Because whenever I think about the fact that that happened, I am a little bit disturbed, because I'm like, that was weird, and Spike was not a good guy, and it was not a healthy relationship at all. So yeah, I just wanted to bring emphasis to that, because I remember that happened this season, and I was like, what the fuck? overall, I think I already mentioned it, so I'm not going to repeat anything that I've already said in my discussions, but I do enjoy the parallels that they made in between Buffy and Giles' relationship to Riley and Walsh's relationship. I think there was so many parallels, and it was really interesting to see how all of that worked out. So I think those parallels were fantastic, but I've already talked about them, so I'm not going to repeat it here. I think in general, I want Tara and Anya to be able to find friends in the squad that are not just their love interests. Like, I want Tara to talk to the rest of the people, and I want Anya to talk. Like, I want them to create friendships because I feel like they can create really sweet friendships. Like, I want to see Tara and Buffy being best buds, and I want to see Anya and Giles being BFFs forever. You know, I feel like there's so many different pairings that we could pick, and I want that to happen because I feel like it's gonna put them more into a group and put them more into the group in a way that isn't just as a love interest. And I guess the same could go for Riley too. I don't know why I didn't include his name. Yeah, him and Xander, best buddies. I want that to happen. I want it now. I feel like those would be a good ways of furthering the friendships and creating new duos that could work. It is finally time for my season 5 predictions, and I'm not ready for this. I'm not. I'm going to have to rewatch 422 before I head into season 5. I think I'm going to rewatch it and try and come up with some theories related to that episode because I was not able to absorb or process it at all. But I do have like some general vague season 5 theories that we can start discussing. The main one would be in regards to like who would be the big bad. And because it is a big season, I think the big bad has to be somebody we know. Because I think the big bad twist hits you harder, and I'm thinking Angelus, when it's somebody that you know and love. When there's that twist, and also thinking about Faith. And I guess they did the same thing to Riley. So this is clearly a theme that they have of sort of making good characters go bad for a whole season, and I think that season 5 would have to go down that route. So when I was thinking, what are the characters that could go bad? My mind went to Drusilla. I wrote down a bunch of names. Drusilla, because she's been gone, and because ever since she killed Kendra in Becoming Part 2, I have thought, this is it. This means she is the big bad. This means she's all powerful. This is a setup. This is a setup. This is a setup. And I think I even said maybe she's the season 4 big bad. She was not. So maybe she's the season 5. Or if not, I wrote Darla just because when I think of Drusilla, I think of Darla because I'm always begging for them together. And I mean, Darla just showed up an angel, so it seems like she's gonna be the angel big bad. So I don't know if they would be able to connect and have both stories have the same big bad. It could be interesting. I feel like it would be more likely to be Drusilla because I don't see them. I really feel like Darla is gonna stick to Angel right now, but it would be super interesting if she was the one. If not, who were my other predictions? Well, I said the first Slayer because it looks like from the previous episode, it looks like the spirit of this first Slayer or whatever could be big bad material because it seems kind of like, I don't know, overwhelming and scary. If not, my last 2 predictions, and these are a little bit out of the box, were Anya or Tara, because I think they're both characters that we trust, and they have both shown to be powerful. Tara with the witch stuff, and Anya with the demon stuff. I feel like if either of them, like, they seem to have a lot of power, and I'm not sure if they could use that for like forces of evil, as Giles would say. So I don't know. I think those would have to be if I had to pick anybody to be the season 5 big bad, I would have to say it's one of those. But I'm not sure. In regards to like plots and like stories, I sort of separated them into like characters, I think. Because I think that just makes it easier for me. Like for example, I do think Giles is gonna have to get a job that goes beyond just being a watcher. I think he's gonna have to find something, and I think that he will. I do think that we're gonna have to talk about Giles's problems with alcohol because it seems like it's serious. It concerned me a little in the end of this season, the fact that because it's sort of become a pattern that he always seems to resort to alcohol whenever he's like bummed out or going through a bunch of emotions. And so I want us to be able to discuss that so that he can find like healthier coping mechanisms. So for Giles, I see them talking about that serious thing, and I see the job scenario, and I see a relationship. If it's Olivia or not, I'm not 100% sure. Um, but I think it's got to be something serious. Like I think they're gonna actually, if it is her, I think they're gonna bring her in, or it's gonna be somebody who we meet in season 5. But I think we're gonna like actually talk about it. And I have similar predictions for Xander. I think that he's gonna find somewhat of a purpose, and I think that purpose might be the army. I say with not a lot of confidence. It seems like he likes to be Army Xander. It seems like he enjoys the power and stuff like that of like being able to be good at what he does, and he seems to actually have a knack for it. Like he seems to be good. So I think my predictions for Xander would have to be that he would get somewhat involved in the army in some way. Maybe. Who else we have? Oh, my very quick predictions for Joyce was that I also think she's gonna have a relationship, just like Giles. Not with Giles, because we tried that and it was weird. But I do think that she is so alone right now. I don't really see Buffy coming home like all that often. I don't think it would make super sense. And so I feel like her getting a relationship is a way around that, because we wouldn't have to be like so concerned about her being alone, because we know that she would at least have whoever her partner is. So I do think that Joyce is gonna get somebody in her life so that we don't have to put so much pressure in Buffy. For what else did I write? Oh, I put that I think Anya is gonna get her powers back, because I think they do have to explore a storyline for Anya. I think that this season has probably made them realize that she deserves more, because she's really interesting. From the brief moments I was able to watch of my season 3 review, I said that I thought Anya was going to get upped to like series regular. I was expecting her to be in the credits. I thought she was going to be the one to get like upped and stuff, and she never made it to the credits. So I wonder if season 5 would be that chance for her, if she's finally going to get her chance to shine, and I really, really hope she does. So those would be my hopes and wishes for her, would be that she gets her powers back, and then maybe she could use that to help them, like if she's able to grant wishes and those kind of things. Like I'm not sure how it would work, but I think it would be very interesting, and I would be so down to see that. For Tara, I think she's going to be very important in season 5. And if you would have asked me for my predictions before 422, I would have never said that. But considering how much she was in 422, I feel like that's gotta mean something. I feel like it was so interesting, because 422 to me seemed like a comforting way of telling me that they know exactly what they're doing. It's like they were looking at me and telling me like, we have this ride we want to take you on, and we know exactly where it's going and where it's stopping, so you just sit along and you enjoy the ride, because the ending is already like set in stone. Like we already have it. Like I feel like season 4 didn't really have a super big setup for what was the finale leading up to, and I feel like right now season 5 has already established their finale through that one episode. I can already tell that they know exactly what they're leading up to in the season finale, and it worries me a little, but I'm excited for it. So in general, I think I definitely talked about the fact that I think that Tara is gonna have some sort of connection to her mom's spirit. I think her mom is that god that we were talking about. There's one thing I'm certain on in my life, it's gotta be that. So I think that Tara is gonna have to also, similarly to Anya, and I feel like maybe this is why I said that maybe both of them or either of them could be the big bad, is that I think they're both going to find ways to come into connections with powers, and my question is, how are they gonna handle that? But I do think that Tara is going to become a part of the squad, like for reals, because I didn't expect her to become. And it seems like she already did in this season. So I feel like season 5 is going to solidify that. So I'm really excited for Tara. I'm not a fan of what I wrote for Buffy because it's a little bit sad. But beside Buffy's bullet points in my notes, I wrote Riley dies, grief, character progress. That's a little bit very straight to the point. I did say I had a feeling that Riley was going to die, which is why I didn't even put his name in my character predictions, because I would have just written like it's gonna lead up to a death, because I think I still have that feeling inside of me. I do think that potentially this could mean an interesting storyline for Buffy of her dealing with grief, because I think we have seen parts of it, but it's never been of somebody who was awfully close to her. I think Jenny was probably the closest, but I mean that like we've seen even from the pilot how she can be devastated by deaths that weren't even her. You know what I mean? Like that's the word even that doesn't even make sense. I mean like we've seen her be affected by deaths of people who she didn't even know. And I feel like getting to see her go through the death of somebody she really genuinely cares about could be really hard for her. And I feel like that could be a very hard thing to watch, but really interesting if they deal with like a grief talk in a good way, which I feel like this show has all the potential to. So I feel like I put that there because I have no idea where Buffy's storyline is going to go this season, but I feel like she's going to have to go through something big because it's season 5 and I know they got to do something big because otherwise it wouldn't be good. But also just I feel like she seemed to be so, like I said, not too much character progress in this season that I feel like there's got to be something in season 5 that sparks a change inside of her. So we're going to see. And in regards to like her and Spike, I guess, I do think season 5 is going to be the start of Spuffy. So I do think that Buffy and Riley, at least by, I think they might last until around the middle of the season, I would say is the latest that I can see them getting together. But I think that probably around episode 7 or 8, they're going to like realize that they're not meant for each other and break up, or Riley's gonna die. And then I think that her and Spike are going to start having some flirtatious encounters and stuff. I think it might take a few episodes, but I think that like by the end of season 5, I can see them already having a relationship, I would say. I don't know. It's because season 5 feels so big and so mysterious that I'm like, all the cool things have to happen in season 5, so Spuffy has to happen. So yeah, I think I could say that. And in regards to Spike, I haven't been able to decide if I think he's gonna stay like as a good guy or a bad guy. Because I feel like it would also be interesting to have Buffy start dating him even when he is a bad guy, and she's gonna have to like sort of teach him and be like, Spike, you know you can't do that, like you can't do blah blah blah, like that's wrong. Like I could see that happening. I could see that dynamic for sure. As long as he isn't like murderous, but I could see him still not being the super best guy. So I honestly don't know about Spike. I cannot make up my mind if I think he's going to go evil or good guy. Which is exciting because it means that I have no expectations whatsoever for his character. I'm just here to observe. Yeah, I just saw my bullet point next to Spike's name. It's a question mark. I didn't even write anything. I just wrote a question mark, and that is a mood. And I also wrote Faith's name down. That was the last name that I wrote down. Even though she is in jail and I don't see how she would fit into this story, again, because I know people love season 5, I feel like Faith's gotta be a part of it, right? Because I feel like she always ups the episodes that she's in to a different level and standard, that I feel like if she's in season 5, she's gonna bring it to a whole new level. So I'm not sure if she's gonna be in it like start to finish, but I do think that there's gotta be some sort of Faith presence in season 5. I feel like all my predictions are very vague and not at all specific, but it's just very hard to make predictions when I have no idea at all where the story is going. My only hope is that we figure out the cheese mystery. Because I think Mr. Cheeseman is the key to figuring it all out. Because he seemed to be the thing that connected all of their dreams, the one thing they had in common, which has to mean something. So if they see anything that has to do with cheese in season 5, I'm gonna say go for it and like figure out what that means. Like I think we're gonna have to talk about that man and what the fuck the cheese means. I mean, I hope it has a reason, because if it doesn't have a reason, I might literally like get so pissed I would die. So yeah, season 5 is like so mysterious. I feel like once I actually start the season and I understand where they're going with the storylines, I'm gonna be able to create more predictions. I feel like I enjoy creating predictions while I'm watching, like throughout the season. I feel like most of my predictions for season 4 came in the second half of the season, once they had established Adam, once they had established the initiative. I feel like that's when I was able to start creating predictions. So I think once we have an idea of who the season 5 big bad is, it's going to be easier for me to come up with super wrong theories of where that's going to go in my head. But right now, without knowing who it is, it becomes very hard. So yeah, we're going to head into the last final part of the video. I asked on YouTube if you guys had any questions, because usually I do Q&A for Patreon only, but I thought that was kind of unfair. I was like, maybe people on YouTube have really brilliant questions they would like to know the answers to. So I picked 5, if I'm not mistaken, and I saved them in my phone. Where are they? Okay, the first one is kind of long because it was a bunch of like small questions, but I decided I wanted to answer them. So thank you, Martin, for the question. So Martin asks, favorite characters so far. And I do character rankings during my Q&A video. And for this season, my top 3 characters seem to have been Buffy, Tara, and Willow. Is anybody surprised? No. They both tied at number 1 because I could not pick which one would be number 2. So these would have to be my favorite characters, but overall, if I consider all of the seasons, Buffy has been my number 1 for the other 3 seasons. This was the first season that Buffy didn't win number 1 on her own, like she did. Ow, sorry, I hit myself. Favorite episode of the season. This is gonna lead me to Allie's question, because I was gonna joke with her about it. Allie sent a beautiful question. She says, what was your favorite season 4 episode? If it's not Hush, you're simply wrong. With a heart saying XOXO. Hi, Allie. Good to see ya. I really wanted to joke around with you and say that it wasn't Hush, but the bad part is that I actually think Hush is my favorite. I think it is, because it's so genius and it's so original and it's so groundbreaking. So I think I do have to say Hush. But Allie, I Will Remember You still beats Hush, though. I said what I said, and I will fight you on this. So thank you, Miss Allie Vox, for the question. So yes, favorite episode of the season would have to be that one. A favorite episode of the series. The first episode that comes to my mind is Lie to Me, because I think that was it was the first episode that I saw Buffy as more than just vampire show. I think I talked about this. It really hit me. It hit me deep. I feel like it had a lot of emotion behind it. So Lie to Me is definitely in my mind as one of my favorites. But other than that, I would have to say I think Hush is spectacular. And I think Doppelgangland is another one that comes to mind because I think it's fantastic. Please rank your favorite seasons to this point. I can't. I can't. I've avoided this question every single time because I simply don't think I have favorite seasons at all. I think that there are bits and pieces of every season that I prefer, but my consensus in regards to season 2 and 3 was that I preferred the season 2 Big Bad, but I thought season 3 was more coherent, but their villain wasn't as good. But then season 4, you know what I mean? Like I was saying, it's made me feel so many things that makes me feel like I should put it in number 1, but at the same time, the Big Bad lacks. And then there's season 1, which is just such a classic, and it might not have the best episodes, but it creates the relationship so well that I refuse to answer this question. I can't. I am sorry. But you did ask to rank the season finales to this point. That I can do. That I can do more easily. Prophecy Girl, number one. Prophecy Girl, nothing beats Prophecy Girl. It's amazing. Um, that's interesting. I feel like I'm actually gonna go in order because after that I would say Becoming, and then Graduation Day, and then the Yoko Factor slash what was the name of the second one? The second finale. For season 4. I think it would have to be in order. That's interesting. Um, and if there are any other spoilers I had before starting the show, I think Buffy is the only other spoiler I know. Maybe when I'm watching, something might sound familiar, in which case, if I'm reminded of anything, I will let you guys know. But I do think that that is pretty much all I know. Um, okay, so the Stoic Soliloquies says, are there any side characters you would like to see return in season 5? And I like that question, and I chose it because my mind immediately went to Amy, which I thought was an interesting thing to happen because we saw her for so briefly this episode, and I've always loved the witch episode, and I've always wished that we talked more about her. So I would say Amy, and I think I would say Harmony and Drusilla. I think those would have to be the people that I would love to see again. The most. Okay, so John Doe says, how do you think the show handled the transition from high school to college? How did you like the new college setting and life change for the characters? Do you miss the high school show? Or are you excited to see these characters grow into adults? And I thought this was a fun question, and I'm not going to repeat everything that I've already said, because I think, a lot of these questions were already sort of a part of my discussion anyways. But this one I thought was interesting because it was asking if I miss the high school years or if I'm excited about this. And I think I'm a contradiction of both because I do miss the high school years, but I think I'm so excited that we're in college that I don't miss it in a way that makes me like upset that we're not there. I think that I'm just excited for what's next. So I do think I'm very excited to see how their adult lives are going to change them and how they're going to mature, because I feel like they've already done that so much this season. And overall, I think the change was very smooth and very well done, as I was talking about. Sherilyn has what I would consider a controversial question, or at least a question that might get people pissed at me, so I chose it. Now that you're done with the finale, are you glad they ended it that way, or would you have preferred a standard ending like the penultimate episode? I don't love the ending. I'm sorry. Well, first of all, I think the timing of it was weird. I don't love the fact that Restless was in season 4. I think it should have been 501. So that was a little bit weird, and I think that takes away a lot of what 421 did. I did mention all of the problems that I saw sort of with it and with the story. I do think that it concluded things, and it concluded things very nicely, but the fact that I knew that there was an episode after made me not be able to acknowledge the fact that it was concluding everything. The ending was a little bit not super great, and I feel like sometimes the ending can make or break something. I feel like if an ending is really good, it can completely change the way that you see something, and you can suddenly enjoy it. But it can also wreck something. So I think it did not finish in the best way, but it was still an interesting way to finish. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't love it. I do think it might have been the weakest of the season finales. Last question. So, Shadow Dog Production says that actor availability and or wanting to leave issues repeatedly plagued the writers this season, with Oz and Walsh being the two biggest. Do you think the writers handled this well, or could they have done better? And I think this is a really interesting question because I think it brings a lot to mind, just in the sense of it feels sudden that Oz left. And Walsh's death also came as a shock, but I think that her death really worked with the shock factor of it all. But I just mean that like Oz specifically really completely threw me off guard, and maybe that has to do with the fact that it was a little bit of a surprise that the actor wanted to leave. Like, I feel like they handled that well. I feel like they handled it as well as they could have. I think they did a really good job with Walsh because they gave her her own episode, made her seem really sketchy, and then suddenly crazy, and then suddenly she's dead. So I think that was interesting. I think for Oz, I like that they were able to bring him back, because to me that concludes the storyline in a way that I would have not been satisfied if he had just left and that was the last that we had ever seen of him, I would have been upset. But the conversation that he had with Willow in his van in the end of 419, if I'm not mistaken, that was beautiful. That was amazing. And I think that even his scene saying goodbye, where she asks if he's loved her and stuff like that, like it was very meaningful. They really played with my heart in that episode. I think Wild at Heart was an amazing episode. So I do think that, you know, they might have had their problems with this season, but I don't think that Oz and Walsh leaving were problems. I think they were able to handle that very well. And I admire them for doing that, because it must be, especially if you have something in mind for these characters, which I'm sure they probably did, it must have been hard to let go of all of that. But I think they did an overall pretty fantastic job. I think that's it. Is that it? Wow. I feel like I have drunk so much water right now. Like my throat, I pause to cough every like 2 minutes, which is totally fine. Please remind me not to talk like this ever again. Um, I'm gonna regret saying this. I honestly thought this was going to be potentially a short video, because I feel like I had already talked so much in each individual reaction. You know, I had reactions reach 2 hours, man. 2 hours. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna have that much to say to talk about this season, because I feel like I've talked about most of it, and I was trying not to be super repetitive. So I hope this was somewhat entertaining. I'm sorry if it was too long. I'm sorry. If you watched to the end though, I love you. But yeah, I think those are my thoughts about season 4. A part of me still wants to say it was my favorite season, but I'm not sure I'm gonna say it and then change my mind. So I'm not gonna say that, but I am saying it a little. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys watching this with me. I am so damn excited for season 5 that is going to be starting very shortly. And I appreciate you all sticking with me through this. If you watch this video, especially until the end, I freaking adore you. I love you. You're amazing. You're the best person to have ever walked this earth. And yeah, I really appreciate all of you guys for being here, and I cannot wait to watch season 5 and discuss it and see what happens and see how many predictions I got wrong. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in season 5. So bye bye.